This is the ultimate guide on branding a city, smart city, or town. Almost by accident, cities have had brands for centuries. Things like what the buildings are made out of, how wide the streets are, what the vendors are, the manhole covers, all of those things go into building up a city identity and brand. Just like businesses and corporations, cities can take hold of that brand and make it intentionally so that they can boost tourism, boost residential move-ins, boost businesses, and ultimately elevate the perception of the city. And just like other branding projects, taking on a city brand requires preparation, time, investment, and really careful thought and consideration on the parts of those invested, the stakeholders, the agency, so on and so forth. Now, to my own dismay and to the dismay of other designers, there are too many cities that take on these projects internally. They tend to think that because they have all the inside information of the city, that they are equipped to design a brand identity for that city, and that's just not the case. It's always worth working with a partner who is invested in your brand, invested in growing you as an expert, and sharing their expertise and collaborating with you on your city in order to make sure you have the best chance of success. So in this video and accompanying article, we're going to cover tips on how to brand or rebrand your city. When branding or rebranding your city, there are a couple of things to take into consideration. Unlike businesses who have key decision makers who have authority, city governments and officials are working on behalf of the people, so there's a difference right out the gate. That being said, you should always maintain your branding objective as a city. When any organization, not just cities, set out to do a rebrand, they're usually doing so because there's a problem or a transformation in mind that they'd like to have. So keep in mind, what are you trying to achieve? What goals do you have? What is the outcome of this? Where do you see the city in 12 months or 5 years? And how is this brand going to help you get there? The second tip of branding or rebranding a city is to know your audience. In every quality rebrand and branding project, there's a portion of it called a branding strategy, where we're developing personas and paying attention to who the audience is and who the brand ultimately serves. Can you hear my kiddo crying? He's inside. He just woke up. He's probably hungry. While businesses are able to niche down and really prune out the people they don't want to pay attention to as much as the people they do want to pay attention to, cities are more inclusive and don't have the luxury of niching down quite as much. That said, as part of your brand strategy, it can be beneficial to develop a wide variety of user personas so that you can think through who your city's for, how you're going to serve them, and what this new brand identity is going to do as part of that brand strategy portion. My third tip when branding or rebranding a city is what most city governments already have in their back pocket, which is to know and be familiar with the place. City branding has this beautiful opportunity to identify place. It's like a very strict geographic location that has certain features or lacks certain features. Whatever those are, you can elevate those and utilize them in your brand identity. When you think of your city or town, what landmarks come to mind when you think of the place? What colors, what smells, what sounds? Near Nampa, Idaho, there's a sugar beet factory that reeks, but everybody knows exactly where they are because of that place. What major events have shaped the city? Like the city of Chicago that was shaped by the Chicago Fire. What kind of events is the city proud of, or maybe not so proud of? And of course, what are some key advantages that your city can offer that other cities may not be able to offer? By accumulating and utilizing this information, you're set up to design a much stronger brand identity that attracts more people into your vision. When branding and rebranding a city, make sure to set forth benchmarking metrics so you know if your rebrand has been successful. There's almost always confusion in figuring out how to determine the value of a rebrand, and we have another blog post on that. Just go and check it out. But some examples for some things to measure when doing a rebrand for a city include your monthly web traffic, your social media growth, business permit rates, the growth or decline in home sales, resident surveys and resident retention metrics, and even the growth and enrollment of your public schools. It's also beneficial to know that the runway for growth of a city is much longer than the runway for growth of a business or organization. Unlike an e-commerce brand that might develop a new brand and website and see an instant spike in sales, getting people to move into your city, to start businesses in your city, to enroll their kids in your city is a much longer process that's a slower burn than when building the brand for a normal business. This is where I like to note that it's important that all stakeholders know and agree on the measurements for success. Find that city metric that's most important to you and use that as your benchmark for determining the value of a rebrand for your city. My fifth tip when branding and rebranding city is to launch a new website and social media strategy with the new brand. In every brand project we take on, we make sure to address every point of the brand process, whether it's the strategy, the implementation, the identity, the collateral, all of it. And the same is true when you're designing an identity for a city. Whenever a city launches a rebrand, people are going to pay attention to that media and what's been putting out in the press kit. That means they're going to be Googling it, they're going to look you up on social media, and they're going to be paying attention to the banners in your main street the following weeks after that brand launch. With a branded city website and social media in place, you can really capture more of that brand launch excitement and roll that into momentum for your city as the new brand identity was supposed to. So here's a successful city branding checklist. The first item on our successful city brand checklist is to bring out the identity of the city. When you ask residents or leadership of a city what they think of that city or what they think of when you mention that city, that first thing that comes to mind is usually something that identifies the city for them. These could be historic moments, other residents, the geography, the weather, parks and landmarks, local architecture. It could be the quality of living or the city culture, sometimes the schools, tourist attractions, and main streets in other popular areas. Frankly speaking, every location in every city is really hard to define in a simple, concise moment because of their rich complexity. Creating a brand for a city really requires understanding all the intricacies that goes on in that city in order to make one single unified brand identity. The second checklist item for a successful city brand launch is to use strong images and visuals. There's something quite powerful about cities with strong typography, colors, and beautifully designed systems. Honestly, they really look like they have their stuff together. A brand identity with strong visuals really sets the tone that the local government is working on behalf of the residents and they know what they're doing and organized doing it. Engaging residents, businesses, tourists, and whoever else you might be trying to draw into your city is really a long-term play. Using strong imagery and visuals in that brand identity are going to fortify that brand perception in the minds of your viewers and residents so that you build your reputation over time and ultimately draw in everybody that you want to. The third checklist item of successfully branding a city is to develop enticing messaging. As a brand maker, I know that it's impossible to control what people think about your city, your place, or your business. But that doesn't mean that we can't influence them over time. Through your entire brand suite, the tone of writing, the messaging that you're putting out, the audio you're using, the colors, the typography, the visuals, the strategy of your mission and your purpose, their website, all of it. You can subtly and enticingly influence your residents' mind and the mind of the city. Using enticing and consistent messaging also means that over time you're teaching residents how to think about you, you're teaching residents how to speak about you, and you're building them into your brand army that can go out and speak about your city in the terms of your brand on your behalf. No matter the stage of project maturity, whether you're branding your city actively for the first time, or you had it branded and now you're doing a rebrand, or you're creating a marketing campaign on the city's behalf for the first time, be sure to follow these tips. They're ultimately going to set you up for success in your branding initiative. If this video and article has been useful to you, or you and a committee are finding this part overwhelming and you're having trouble figuring out your brand or rebrand process for your city, please don't be afraid to reach out and send me an email. I love working with city governments because ultimately you're setting out to improve the lives of your residents and constituents, and it's something I can really get on board with, and I'm sure I can help you out in some way or other.